"Was Duncan began it," said Freckles. "You see, through the fierce cold of winter the birds of the swamp were almost starving. It's mighty lonely here, and they were all the company I was having. I got to carrying scraps and grain down to them. Duncan was that generous, he was, giving me of his wheat and corn from his chickens' feed, and he called the birds me swamp chickens. Then when these big fellows came, Mr. McLean said they were our nearest kind to some in the old world that they called Pharaoh's chickens, and he called mine Freckles' chickens." "Good enough!" cried the Bird Woman, her splotched purple face lighting with interest. "You must shoot something for them occasionally, and I'll bring more food when I come. If you'll help me keep them until I get my series, I'll give you a copy of each study I make, mounted in a book." Freckles drew a deep breath. "I'll be doing me very best," he promised, and from the deeps he meant it. "I wonder if that other egg is going to hatch," mused the Bird Woman. "I'm afraid not. It should have pipped today. Isn't it a beauty? I never before saw either an egg or the young. They're rare this far north." "So Mr. McLean said," answered Freckles. Before they drove away, the Bird Woman thanked him for his kindness to the Angel and to her. She gave him her hand at parting, and Freckles joyfully realized that this was going to be another person for him to love. He could not remember, after they had driven away, that they even had noticed his missing hand, and for the first time in his life he had forgotten it. When the Bird Woman and the Angel were on the home road, she told of the little corner of paradise into which she had strayed, and of her new name. The Bird Woman looked at the girl and guessed its appropriateness. "Did you know Mr. McLean had a son?" asked the Angel. "Isn't the little accent he has and the way he twists a sentence too dear? And isn't it too old-fashioned and funny to hear him call his father Mister?" "It sounds too good to be true," said the Bird Woman, answering the last question first. "I'm so tired of these present-day young men who patronizingly call their fathers Dad, Governor, Old Man, and Old Chap, that the boy's attitude of respect and deference appealed to me as being fine as silk. There must be something rare about that young man." She did not find it necessary to tell the Angel that for several years she had known the man who so proudly proclaimed himself Freckles' father to be a bachelor and a Scotchman. The Bird Woman had a fine way of attending strictly to her own business. Freckles turned to the trail, but he stopped at every wild briar to study the pink satin of the petals. She was not of his world, and better than any other he knew it. But she might be his angel, and he was dreaming of naught but blind, silent worship. He finished the happiest day of his life, and that night he returned to the swamp as if drawn by invisible force. That Wessner would try for his revenge he knew. That he would be abetted by Black Jack was almost certain. But fear had fled the happy heart of Freckles. He had kept his trust. He had won the respect of the Boss. No one ever could wipe from his heart the flood of holy adoration that had welled with the coming of his Angel. He would do his best and trust for strength to meet the dark day of reckoning that he knew would come sooner or later. He swung round the trail, briskly tapping the wire and singing in a voice that scarcely could have been surpassed for sweetness. At the edge of the clearing he came into the bright moonlight, and there sat McLean on his mare. Freckles hurried to him. "Is there trouble?" he inquired anxiously. "That's what I wanted to ask you," said the Boss. "I stopped at the cabin to see you a minute before I turned in, and they said you had come down here. You must not do it, Freckles. The swamp is none too healthful at any time, and at night it is rank poison." Freckles stood combing his fingers through Nellie's mane while the dainty creature was twisting her head for his caresses. He pushed back his hat and looked into McLean's face. "It's come to the sleep with one eye open, sir. I'm not looking for anything to be happening for a week or two, but it's bound to come, and soon. If I'm to keep me trust as I've promised you and meself, I've to live here mostly until the gang comes. You must be knowing that, sir." "I'm afraid it's true, Freckles," said McLean, "and I've decided to double the guard until we come. It will be only a few weeks now, and I'm so anxious for you that you must not be left alone further. If anything should happen to you, Freckles, it would spoil one of the very dearest plans of my life." Freckles heard with dismay the proposition to place a second guard. "Oh, no, no, Mr. McLean," he cried. "Not for the world. I wouldn't be having a stranger around, scaring me birds and tramping up me study and disturbing all me ways for any money. I'm all the guard you need. I'll be faithful. I'll turn over the lease with no tree missing. On me life, I will. Oh, don't be sending another man to set them saying I turned coward and ask for help. It'll just kill the honor of me heart if you do it. The only thing I want is another gun. If it really comes to trouble, 6 cartridges ain't many, and you know I am slow like about reloading." McLean reached into his hip pocket and handed a shining big revolver to Freckles, who slipped it beside the one already in his belt. Then the boss sat, brooding. "Freckles," he said at last, "we never know the timber of a man's soul until something cuts into him deeply and brings the grain out strong. You've the making of a mighty fine piece of furniture, my boy, and you shall have your own way these few weeks yet. Then, if you will go, I intend to take you to the city and educate you, and you're to be my son, my lad, my own son." Freckles twisted his finger in Nellie's mane to steady himself. "But why should you be doing that, sir?" he faltered. McLean slid his arm around the boy's shoulder and gathered him close. "Because I love you, Freckles," he said simply. Freckles lifted a white face. "My God, sir," he whispered. "Oh, my God!" McLean tightened his clasp a second longer, then he rode down the trail. Freckles lifted his hat and faced the sky. The harvest moon looked down, sheeting the swamp in silver glory. The Limberlost sang her night song. The swales softly rustled in the wind. Winged things of the night brushed his face, and still Freckles gazed upward, trying to fathom these things that had come to him. There was no help from the sky. It seemed far away, cold and blue. The earth where flowers blossomed, angels walked, and love could be found was better. But to One above he must make acknowledgment for these miracles. His lips moved and he began talking softly. "Thank you for each separate good thing that has come to me," he said, "and above all for the falling of the feather. For if it didn't really fall from an angel, its falling brought an angel. And if it's in the great heart of you to exercise yourself any further about me, oh, do please to be taken good care of her." End of chapter 5, wherein an angel materializes and a man worships.